Again, Lamar Jackson is number one. He passed Michael Vick this past season to move into first place all-time in rushing yards. Michael Vick had 6,109 yards, and Lamar Jackson ended the year last year with 6,173. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm your host, Ernie Jennings, and we're going to do another look around the NFL, move away from the teams for an episode and look at some special categories. This episode will look at the quarterbacks, but at their rushing records, and we'll look at the running backs for their receiving records. So we won't focus on the areas where they are predominant, but the areas where they succeed in other ways. So we'll begin with the quarterbacks. To start with, we'll start with this past season. So Lamar Jackson led the NFL last season with 915 yards rushing. Jaden Daniels was second with 891. So those two really were quite a bit ahead of Jalen Hurts, was third with 630. So you really do see all these running quarterbacks. One of the most amazing is Anthony Richardson. If he could just figure out how to pass the ball on a better percentage rate for completions, he would be moving up this list quite a ways. But he was sixth with 499 yards, but that was on 11 games. So who knows where he ends if he plays another 6 games. Now, Jalen Hurts, who was third with 630, played 15 games. But it's really interesting to see these quarterbacks. When it comes to yards per attempt, Lamar Jackson, who had 915 yards rushing, had 6.6 yard average. So not bad at all. Whereas, say, somebody like Jalen Hurts had 4.2, but you know that tush push is going to drop his average down if you're just rushing so many times for a yard or so. So he's a little bit farther down. But those are your top rushers this past season. And it's really important to look at that, especially if you're into fantasy football. I mean, Lamar Jackson had an outstanding year, set a record actually, and we'll look at that in another episode of the fantasy football all-time best scoring in a fantasy football leagues. But Lamar Jackson just had an incredible season. I mean, not only did he have 915 yards rushing, he threw for over 40 touchdowns. I mean, so he was just racking up points if you had him. I mean, he's averaging 30 points plus a game for your fantasy football team if that was what you were into. So he was quite incredible. Now, when it comes to rookies, obviously Jaden Daniels was the best rookie this past season with 891 yards. I mean, first season in the league, he's only beat out by Lamar Jackson for most rushing yards. But you did have some other rookies as well. I mean, you had Bo Nix had 430 yards. Drake May had 421, and he only started in 12 games. So obviously he could have been much farther up this list as well. So those are a couple of rookies that'll be interesting to watch. And as I said, Anthony Richardson is not a rookie, but he's new and he's been trying to play. He just can't seem to keep himself healthy to play enough games to really matter. So we'll see what happens this year. And if he could figure out how to pass the ball better, we'll see what happens with him. But those are your leaders this past season. You have some quarterbacks that just aren't where their arm is what takes them to the next level as far as fantasy. But with some of these running quarterbacks, if they have an arm and they can run, they can really help you out. When it comes to touchdowns last season, as far as quarterbacks go, well, that was Jalen Hurts, 14 touchdowns. and Josh Allen was second with 12. Those two by far led the NFL as far as quarterbacks go. I mean, Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young all had 6 rushing touchdowns, so half or more than the top 2 players. So they did, Hurts and Allen really did dominate in this category. So that's kind of just this past season. So now when we look at that as far as the current active players and where they stand in their entire career, well, it's Lamar Jackson, who's the number 1 rushing quarterback in the NFL. He has 6,173 yards. Russell Wilson second with 5,462. And then you have Josh Allen with 4,142. So you're really not going to see any changes here as far as the top 3 go. I mean, there's no way Josh Allen's catching Russell Wilson this year. He'd need 1,300 yards. That's not going to happen. And Lamar Jackson's just going to keep extending his lead. And Russell Wilson, obviously, he's on the tail end of his career, so he's not rushing for the kind of yards he did early in his career. What's amazing about Lamar Jackson, he started in 2018. He has this 6,173 yards. Josh Allen also started in 2018. He's a couple thousand yards, though, behind Lamar Jackson. The only move you might see among the top players is Aaron Rodgers is 4th with 3,573 yards. Jalen Hurts is right behind him with 3,133. So basically, Jalen Hurts needs a little over 400 yards. Aaron Rodgers isn't running around anymore. So it's very possible that Jalen Hurts could move into 4th on the active list this next season. And if, as we've heard, Aaron Rodgers decides to retire, well, he'll drop from this list anyway. But currently, he's 4th all time. And so those are your top 4. And Kyler Murray's 6th behind, just behind a little over 100 yards behind Jalen Hurts. So those two could actually pass Aaron Rodgers, and depending on which one of them does better this season, Kyler Murray could actually pass Jalen Hurts. And Murray has expressed the desire to run more, so we'll see what happens with that this coming season. When we're looking at touchdowns all time, well, then we have another change on the list. Josh Allen leads the NFL as far as quarterbacks go with 65 rushing touchdowns, and Jalen Hurts is second with 55. They are by far leading the NFL as far as active players go. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 3rd, but he has 35, so quite a ways behind. Now, Lamar Jackson has 33, so he only needs 3 to pass Aaron Rodgers to move into 3rd. So that's very possible that will happen this season. Those are your top 4. And like I said, Aaron Rodgers is pretty much done. I mean, he might get a touchdown just by maybe being on the 1-yard line or something, but I don't expect to see too much out of him. And Russell Wilson's 5th. Again, I don't see much out of him. So really, we're looking at Lamar Jackson. Now, Kyle Murray is 6th with 31, tied with Russell Wilson. So it's very possible Kyler Murray, he only needs 5 touchdowns this next season to also pass Aaron Rodgers. So we'll watch those players. But those are really the ones that matter the most as far as these touchdowns. After that, there's nobody really close to those kind of numbers, and no one's close to Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. So we'll be watching them when it comes to how well those two do. Now, when we're looking at the career records, not just among active players career-wise, but all time, again, Lamar Jackson is number 1. He passed Michael Vick this past season to move into 1st place all time in rushing yards. Michael Vick had 6,109 yards, and Lamar Jackson ended the year last year with 6,173. So he moved into 1st place. So those are your top 2. So Lamar Jackson's just going to continue to extend his record this next season. Cam Newton's 3rd with 5,628. And again, Russell Wilson's fourth, but like I said, he only needs 167 yards to pass Cam Newton, so that's a possibility. But that's as far as he's ever going to get. He'll never catch Michael Vick. I doubt it seriously. Russell Wilson's been in the league since 2012, so I just don't see him lasting too much longer. We don't even know if he'll start the entire season or anything like that. So, but Lamar Jackson's your number one quarterback, and if you're not counting Cam Newton, not Cam Newton, but Russell Wilson, who is active. The next one down that really will make a move is Josh Allen, who's in seventh, but he has 4,142. So he'll pass Steve Young this year. He just needs 90-something yards to pass Steve Young to move into sixth. And he could possibly catch Randall Cunningham, but he'd need about 800 yards. So that's a little bit much, I think, for Josh Allen. Even though he's very active running, he's not quite in the category of Lamar Jackson as far as rushing in a season. So those are your top running backs. Very interesting. We have some young guys, obviously, that will be moving up this list as the years go. But there's really no really young guy currently. Like I said, Josh Allen, seventh. Then you do have Jalen Hurts, but again, he's at 3,133 yards for 13th place. So even though he does rack up some yards, he's not going to catch Lamar Jackson. I doubt it, unless something was to happen to Lamar Jackson. So I think Lamar Jackson might have a pretty good stranglehold on this category for many years to come. Kyler Murray came in a year after Lamar Jackson, but he's 3,000 yards. He's only got half the yardage that Lamar Jackson has. So there really isn't anybody. Somebody like Jaden Daniels will be the next one, maybe, if he has years like he just had. But we're talking about, 7 years out before you start seeing him up this list. And he's got to average the kind of yardage he just had his rookie season. So those are a look at your quarterbacks. So what do we look at as we look at it? Kind of give an overview, an outlook on 2025. One of the interesting things before I get to that is that when it comes to career rushing yards, Lamar Jackson's 96th all time in rushing yards. That's counting running backs, everybody. So it'll be interesting to see where he finishes when he ends his career as far as active running in the rushing category, whether you're talking about a quarterback or a running back. Be pretty impressive to see how far he can make it up the list. And even more so, right now, Cam Newton is 26th all time as far as quarterbacks go when we're looking at TDs. And we'll look at that right now because I had forgot that actually. I did the rushing, but I didn't do the TDs for active and for... Let me go back to that active list. So active, I do. Josh Allen has 65 TDs, and Jalen Hurts has 55. And when we're looking at all time, Cam Newton holds the all-time record. He played from 2011 to 2021. He had 75 touchdowns rushing. Josh Allen has 65. Jalen Hurts has 55. So you have three players who've been around since... Cam Newton retired 14 years ago, but they're all more recent. Actually, I'm sorry, Cam Newton retired 4 years ago, and two of them are active players. The top three are all recent players. What's interesting about that is they broke a record that Otto Graham had set in 1955 when he had 44. So that record stood for a long time, and all of a sudden you've got three players that are competing for the all-time number. So going back to the outlook, like I was saying, Lamar Jackson is 96th all-time as far as rushing goes in yardage. Cam Newton's 26th all-time as far as rushing goes in touchdowns with 75. But, so when we're looking at the outlook, as far as touchdowns go, Is Josh Allen in 2025 going to be able to take down Cam Newton for the all-time number of touchdowns in a single in a career? Well, he had 12 last season, so if he does that again, he will be number one all time in rushing touchdowns. So that's impressive. But what's also impressive is Jalen Hurts is right behind him with 55, and not only is he behind only by 10 behind Josh Allen, he started his career 2 years later. Josh Allen started in 2018. Jalen Hurts didn't start his career till 2020. So Josh Allen has 10 touchdown lead, but he started 2 years earlier. So you really can see that Josh Allen's going to have to keep it up, and it's very, very possible that Jalen Hurts will ultimately pass Josh Allen. So those two will be battling it out, but they're both going to pass Cam Newton. I mean, it's going to take Jalen Hurts 2 years probably, and I think that it's very possible that Josh Allen moves into the number one lead this year. We'll watch Jalen Hurts pass Cam Newton next year, and then it'll be a race between Allen and Hurts until they retire. So that'll be a fun thing to watch. But once you get past those two, Allen and Hurts, as far as active players, there's nobody really. Lamar Jackson's the next one, but he has, not counting somebody like Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson only has 33. So as great as he is rushing, he doesn't ultimately isn't the one that's running in for a touchdown as often as Newton and Allen do it. I'm sorry, as far as Allen and Hurts do. So that'll be fun to watch this next season, to watch Josh Allen and see if he can break Cam Newton's record of 75 touchdowns rushing by a quarterback. And the other outlook as far as the quarterbacks go is just to watch how far Lamar Jackson can stretch his lead in the rushing total amount. So you really have some great quarterbacks playing right now when you're talking about the running game aspect of quarterback's position. All right, let's move on to the running backs. And what we're looking at here is not their rushing greatness, but their receiving greatness. Now, this last season, Devon Achane, which I always say his name wrong, but he had 78 receptions to lead the NFL last season. Alvin Kamara, who's always up here, been up there for years, was second with 68 receptions last season. And then Bijan Robinson had 61. Those are your top three. So that's just this past season. When you're looking at total receptions, when you're looking at yards, Achane again led the NFL with 592, and Alvin Kamara was right behind him with 543. So only really 49 yards behind. Then Jahmyr Gibbs was third with 517, and that's because he had one of the higher yards per reception averages, 9.9. So that helped him boost him up closer to Alvin Kamara and Devon. Same with James Conner, who he had 47 receptions, but he ended up sixth with 414 yards because he had an 8.8 yard average. And there's a lot of comments about Conner every year, and is he going to slow down? But every year he might get hurt. He played 16 games last year, so he only missed a game. But he ends up being one of the better, not always the best, but one of the better running backs when it comes to reception and yardage rushing. So he's a good one to watch. He's a sneaky player if you're into fantasy football because he really does perform fairly well and consistently. So those were the current top of the list active players as far as those goes. And we're looking at TDs. Well, you had Achane again and Rachaad White. Both had 6 touchdowns receiving. Those are your top two. And you had a couple, Jahmyr Gibbs and Chase Brown, who had 4 touchdowns. So nobody had more than 6 receiving touchdowns, which will be important when we look at another category coming up. So when you take those numbers and you add them to the active list, well, Alvin Kamara is the active player leading running backs that are leading as far as receptions go. Alvin Kamara has 573 receptions. Christian McCaffrey second with 524. What's interesting is they both started in 2017. Now, the difference, obviously, is McCaffrey has had some seasons where he just doesn't play much. So that's what's kept him from probably holding the lead in this category. Austin Eckler's third with 475, and he also came out in 2017. It's really interesting. When I'm looking at this list of active players, and at the top of the list, 4 out of the top 5 started in 2017. And 6 of the top 8 in 2017. Really interesting. Though Leonard Fournette, we can't count him, but you have Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. So that's somewhat incredible. The only one that breaks this up is Ezekiel Elliott has 368 receptions. He started in 2016, but he's not even playing this year, so he will fall back. Aaron Jones, like I said, is 5th with 323. So he needs 45 to catch Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know if he'll do that or not. And then another one that breaks up this is Saquon Barkley, who came out in 2018 into the NFL. He has 321. So he's a year behind these other guys. But still, he's way behind Kamara and McCaffrey as far as receptions go. Those two really hold a commanding lead over active players. When it's coming to yardage, it's the same thing. It's, again, Alvin Kamara has 4,762 yards, and Christian McCaffrey has 4,466 yards. So those are your top two when it comes to yardage. And then when you're looking at TDs, well, it's Austin Eckler has 30. Christian McCaffrey has 29. Those are your top two. And Kamara has 25. Really, those are the only three. I mean, the next is Aaron Jones with 20. So there's a big gap between the top three, and especially the top two, even from Alvin Kamara, who's got 25. But Austin Eckler has 30. I see if Christian McCaffrey is healthy, as they're saying, he's got 29. I can see him passing Eckler, having more touchdowns this next season, because Eckler is not going to be on the field as often as McCaffrey is. So there's a much better chance that you see McCaffrey get more touchdown receptions this year. But will be fun to watch and see if McCaffrey can move number one all time on the active players list. Now, when we're looking at the career-wise of all players, including those who are not playing anymore, what I like about this, and it's really interesting, is that the number one receiver from the backfield is Larry Sanders, who was a fullback, not a running back. He played from 1990 to 2003. He has the record with 827 receptions. Then you have Marshall Faulk with 767. Those two are by far ahead of LaDainian Tomlinson, whose third was 624. So there's quite a 200 receptions difference between first and third. And when you're looking at active players, again, when you're talking about Kamara, he's quite a ways down the list here. He's 8th right now with 573. So he's a little ways down this list as far as receptions go. When we're looking at yards, this is where it flip-flops. Marshall Faulk leads in yardage with 6,875, just beating out Larry Sanders, who had 6,797. So they were very close in yardage. But it is Marshall Faulk who leads in that category. And again, Alvin Kamara is 11th when it comes to yardage. So a little farther down, Christian McCaffrey 16th in this category of the all-time running backs as far as receiving goes. Now, when we're looking at touchdowns, it's Marshall Faulk again. And it does flip-flop again in this category. But Marshall Faulk has 36, but it's Darren Sproles, who had 553 receptions from 2005 to 2019. He had 32 touchdown receptions. So Austin Eckler drops down to third. He's tied for third with 30. So Marshall Faulk led in yardage and led in TDs as far as running backs go and in receiving category. Christian McCaffrey, 7th right now with 29 on the all-time list as far as running backs go. So those are your top players. So when we're looking at this, what's interesting about it is that when we're looking at receptions all time, Larry Centers is 36th all time in receptions, regardless of whether you're a wide receiver, running back, whatever. And it's what's interesting about it is this next category and how this thing falls down. When it comes to career receiving yards, though, Marshall Faulk leads as far as running backs go, but he's only 169th all time in receiving yards, whether you're a running back, wide receiver, or not, or whatever. And then when it comes to career receiving touchdowns, there's not a running back or somebody from the backfield that's in the top 250 players. So it's very interesting. Though they can get up there in receptions, they just don't have the yardage or the TDs. And that's obvious because running backs are averaging anywhere from 8 to 10 yards typically, whereas wide receivers are averaging, anywhere from 12 to 18 yards or something like that. So they're going to have a lot more yardage. But it is interesting to see how different these categories play themselves out. So what we're looking at in 2025 as far as running backs go is if Alvin Kamara can get 52 receptions, he'll move into third place all time. He'll pass LaDainian Tomlinson for third place. 52 is not bad. I mean, he had, I believe, 60-something this past season. So there shouldn't be any reason he can't get that many this next season. He had 68 receptions. So 52 is not out of the realm of possibility at all. So we'll watch him in 2025 to see if he can move into third place. And then, not as likely, obviously, because the leaders this past season, as far as touchdowns go, were Achane and Rachaad White, and they had 6 touchdowns receiving. Not bad, but if Christian McCaffrey gets 8 touchdowns as far by receiving, he'll move into first place all time in touchdowns receiving by somebody from the backfield, by a running back. So I will be watching that. I hope you are too. It'll be fun to watch McCaffrey if he can have a healthy season. He's just primed to move up the record books in all kinds of categories. But this will be one I'll be fun to watch to see if he could get 8 touchdown receptions. 7 will tie him for first. 8 will put him in the lead. So even if he doesn't get it, he should definitely get it next year as long as he can stay healthy. And that's a big if. So that's just a kind of a quick look at the quarterbacks and running backs from a different angle than you might typically see. Next episode of Just the Stats NFL, I'll go back to the teams of the NFC, and I'll be looking at the last place team from the NFC East, and that's the New York Giants, which will wrap up that division. So we'll continue our look into the NFC, wrap all that up as we close in on the beginning of the 2025 season. I can't wait for that. So if you're interested in any of those or the AFC, go back and you can listen to my previous podcasts so you can hear about your favorite team and their record holders. Now, when we get into the season, each week during the season, I'm going to try to report on any records that the teams or players set during those games of 2025, whether it's a single game record, season, or career record. And it might be even records that I haven't really covered. There's too many records for me to cover in these podcasts. There's so many records that the NFL has that they keep. And it's hard to keep up with all of them on any kind of regular basis, but I will try to do that during the season so that you might hear, hey, somebody from your favorite team, Jacksonville Jaguars for me, maybe they set whatever type of record. It'd be great to see Travis Hunter set most interceptions in a single game or something like that. That would be awesome. But so that'll be something I'll be doing. And I'll do that every week, cover every team and any records that are set. I also keep track of kind of a running account of the season's leaders in different categories, the main ones, most yards passing, that type of thing, most rushing yards, most receiving yards or receptions, that kind of thing, most touchdowns. So I'll keep up with that and kind of give a running list of who's leading the NFL in 2025 in those types of categories. So that's what I'll be covering. It's a little bit different than you might hear on other podcasts, where they're talking about different things. I'm going to stick more to the stats and let the other podcasts talk about incidents that might have happened in a game, that kind of thing. Keeping track of these numbers is good for fantasy football if you're into that, and I am. You can kind of, just by the fact that somebody's leading the NFL in certain categories will help you as far as whether that's a player you might want on your fantasy football team. So another reason to listen to the podcast. But anyway, that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats NFL. So until next time, I am out.